January 26, 1972. A commercial flight cruises high above Czechoslovakia, Flight 367. The passengers relax, the crew makes their rounds. Then, without warning, the plane explodes. A 22-year-old flight attendant named Vesna Vulovic was blown from the plane, plummeted more than 33,000 feet without a parachute, and survived. Her body crashed into a snow-covered hillside, shielded by a piece of the plane's fuselage. Bones shattered, her skull fractured, but somehow, Vesna was still alive. She had no memory of the explosion, no memory of the fall, but doctors confirmed it. She fell 33,330 feet and lived. Vesna Vulovic had just set the world record for the highest fall without a parachute. The authorities were stunned. How could anyone survive a fall from cruising altitude? A full investigation was launched to determine what really happened and how Vesna lived. They found that Vesna had been trapped inside a portion of the tail section, wedged in by a food cart. It acted like a crude safety capsule, slowing her descent just enough, and the snow cushioned her fall. News of Vesna's survival spread across the world. The scientists were stunned. Reporters called it divine intervention. To many, this wasn't just a survival story. It was a miracle. Vesna became an icon overnight, not for fame or fortune, but for the sheer will to live. Doctors said it defied biology. Survivors called her an angel. Vesna, she never bragged. In the days that followed, investigators scoured the snowy crash site for answers. Wreckage was scattered across a remote forest in Czechoslovakia. The official report came quickly. A bomb had been planted in the luggage compartment, an act of terrorism, but not everyone bought the story. Yugoslav authorities blamed Croatian nationalists, but no group ever claimed responsibility. And curiously, no hard evidence of an explosive device was ever released to the public. Some aviation analysts quietly questioned the narrative. Why did the tail section land so intact? Why was Vesna's body positioned in the wreckage in a way that defied terminal velocity? Officially, Vesna survived due to a combination of freak circumstances: the fuselage wedge, the snow-covered trees, and the steep angle of impact. But physicists and engineers have run the numbers. The G-forces alone should have been fatal. Her injuries were catastrophic, yet not incompatible with life. Some theorized her being trapped inside the tail section created a crumple zone effect. Others pointed to her low blood pressure, saying she passed out early, which may have helped her body stay limp during impact. Still, no one has been able to replicate or fully explain her survival, and so the legend of Vesna Vulovic only deepened, a living paradox that science couldn't quite explain. Vesna woke up days later in a Prague hospital with no memory of the crash. In fact, she believed she was still flying to Denmark. Her injuries were devastating: a fractured skull, broken legs, crushed vertebrae, and a broken pelvis. She was paralyzed from the waist down, but within 10 months, she was walking again. The media turned her into a global icon, the miracle girl who cheated death. But behind the headlines was a woman struggling with pain, trauma, and a question no one could answer. Why did she survive? Vesna never remembered the fall, and perhaps that was mercy, but the world would never forget her. Vesna returned to work at JAT Airways, but never flew again. Instead, she took a desk job, grounded forever, yet always carrying the skies with her. She lived modestly, never seeking fame or fortune. She didn't remember the crash. She didn't want to be remembered for it. Still, she became a national symbol in Yugoslavia, a quiet embodiment of survival against impossible odds. And behind her shy smile was a woman who had seen the edge of death and somehow came back. When asked how she lived, she simply said, "I don't know. I was just lucky," but others weren't so sure. To this day, Vesna Vulovic holds the Guinness World Record for surviving the highest fall without a parachute, 33,330 feet. She passed away in 2016, never fully understanding how she survived and never wanting to be treated as a hero. Some say it was luck, others say it was fate, and some believe there was something more. But whatever you believe, the story of Vesna Vulovic reminds us that sometimes, even when everything says we should be gone, we're still here. If you enjoyed this story, please stay tuned for more true and unexplained phenomenon. I'll see you in the next one.